Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Jeanne Gallagher, and welcome to Discover Rising Tides. How the outside makes the inside better, where we explore the importance of the outdoors and maintaining life balance. And through this series, we'll be talking with women business owners to understand their journey. And today, as always, we start with our Healthy Living, Happy Life segment with Denise E Stegall. Hey, Denise.
Hey, how are you, Jeanne?
I'm excited for today. There's some high energy happening here.
We got some energy. We're talking about success.
Yes. Denise is an international best-selling author of Healthy Living, Happy Life, a practical path to finding a healthy lifestyle that works for you, and curator of Healthy Living List. And this month's topic is Healthy Living, Happy Life from 3,000 feet, and how planning and organizing leads to a fulfilling life. And today, how success happens with the 3 Ps.
Yay!
Yay! And then our second segment will be our main guest, Diane McClay, and I'm really excited for that too. And Diane and Denise are friends, and that's how we all connected. So we'll get to that. But let's start with you, Denise. Tell us about the 3 Ps.
Okay, so we've been talking about planning from the 3,000 foot area. So kind of looking down from up there, like you're on a plane looking down, you can see things much more clearly when you're looking from above. We get stuck in our minutia of every day. And so, when we all want to be successful, right? And so we all read a lot of books, we listen to a lot of podcasts, we listen to a lot of gurus, follow podcasts, whatever it may be. But what happens is we kind of get a little bombarded by great information. Everybody has good information, great information. The challenge, I think, where we really we start listening to all of these gurus, you and me and Diane included. But most of the challenge is before we start listening, we kind of need to know what success means to us. What is the path? Like how do we want to be successful? And of course, being successful means something different to you than it does to me. Mm-hmm. So when it comes to planning, we kind of have to go, okay, what is it that we actually want? In the big picture. That's what we're looking big picture, because then we can kind of we can get down to the nitty gritty a little bit more. So again, what is it that we want to succeed in? And you can do this, overall, this is what I want in my life. This is what I want in my business. This is what I want for the next year. Mm-hmm. So it can be something that you work on the 3 Ps. We'll talk about that a little bit more in a second. You can use the 3 Ps, the 3 P concept for all the different areas in your life. But I think what's important is we need to start with, again, core values. What are those things that are important to you? Why do you want this particular success? Why do you want to achieve these particular goals? And at that point, that's when we can say, okay, we need a plan. So the 3 Ps, of course, we talked about this last time, are planning, prioritizing, and preparing. Now, what tends to happen when clients come to me, they've read all of these books and have all these bits and pieces of ideas. They've attended events, you name it. And so they've got bits and pieces of a plan. A little bit from, Dr. J, and a little one, more information from this particular book. And so they have this compilation of ideas, and it's overwhelming because they liked this piece of one program, another part of a different one. And so they kind of look at all of this going, okay, this is my overarching goal or plan that I want to succeed in, but I'm going to try to plan in 3 different ways, mm-hmm. which doesn't obviously make sense. And so for me, when I started to get my life back on track, because I had, was dealing with a health issue a handful of years ago, my success plan started simply with eat real food, make good decisions, and be accountable, which we've talked about. And for me, that was what optimized my overall well-being, gave me the energy that I was looking for. And really to find that healthy lifestyle that works for me,
Mhm.
which is really in my life what I was looking for and what I help people to do. That said, there were also times even within that I realized I didn't exactly have a laid out plan. And so that's where I came up with the three P's. What's that first part that I needed? I needed to know, well, what was the plan? What was my goal? And the goal is part of the plan. And obviously then there are these steps. And most of us are not very good at planning. We have a calendar. I have 3 of them. I have one upstairs that my husband and I share. I have my Google Calendar. I have one on my, my desk just to quickly flip through. So we're not really great at planning. And then what happens is when we face an obstacle or things don't quite work in that pseudo plan, we give up.
Mm-hmm.
So I know it's always said, a goal without a plan is just a dream. So this is really where we want to sit down and access our inner guru,
Mm-hmm.
and come to and sit down with a plan. What is it that we want? How do we want to achieve it? What resonates? So I ask you, Jeanne, if you have, what is the next thing you want to succeed in?
That question right there is so important, and it's so hard for people to answer, right? And going back to what I'll answer your question. I'm not avoiding much, but going back to what you had said before, if people are going out and getting all this information from all these different sources, and there's just information overload and it's overwhelming, it's easy to go, I have no idea. This seems like such a great idea in the beginning, but I don't remember because I've already listened to 4 other things. And that goal setting piece becomes really difficult. And I think you have to bring it back to simple, easy to understand bits and pieces, like what you just said. I needed to get to a healthy lifestyle. So let's start on a small thing and work towards it. Mm-hmm. And for me, setting goals is hard, but satisfying once you do it, because now all of a sudden you have a focus. Mm-hmm. And it's okay to have goals in different areas of your life. So I have podcast goals, I have personal goals, I have professional goals, and I have relationship goals. But having them siloed, even though it's all me, having them siloed helps a little bit, and but they also each touch each other.
Yes. And so 2 things that I think are really important, especially when it comes to that, to creating those goals. Mm-hmm. I love the SMART goal. I love making SMART goals because they're you can write them down and they're right in front of you, that you can keep them right in front of you. That's one of the first things I tell people. Let's look at what that first goal is. Like for me, I want to lose 5 pounds. What is, what is that? That's my goal, because it's measurable. It's pretty simple. Mm-hmm. I want to lose 5 pounds by August 9th, whatever. Mm-hmm. So smarter goals really helps you to start that plan. To me, that's really the beginning of the plan. Mm-hmm. When you talk about, siloing things, something that I really love to do with my clients is the life wheel. Mm-hmm. And you've seen it called all sorts of different things. It's where that pie chart of where it says, you have different aspects of your life, your health, your sleep, your relationships. I love using one of those, and I actually recommend to my clients that they do it every quarter. Because this is how you can keep, the silos, everything in a different section, but at the same time, because they all connect. I mean, your professional goals and your personal goals connect. Your personal goals and your relationship goals connect. Mm-hmm. And so by keeping an eye on that, the life wheel, and I change, depending on the client, we change the categories. Mm-hmm. And so that's a great way to, one, plan, but it's also a great way to prioritize.
Oh, I like that too. And people can understand that it ebbs and flows. It's really a moving thing. So it can change quarter to quarter. And what's interesting in what you're saying is when I talk to people for financial goals, goals for me, when I'm talking to them about goals, I tell them the goals need to have three things. They have to have identifier. It has to have a name. It has to have a dollar amount assigned to it. And it has to have a time frame. So when you're saying, I want to lose 5 pounds in however long, you've just done the same thing with a non-financial goal. Is you've given it a name, a purpose. You've said what your time frame is, and you said what you wanted to achieve during that time frame. So it makes it very simple. It's not just something that's out in the ether. It is this thing that's going to do this thing by this time frame.
Exactly. And too often when people start to create a plan, it's I want to lose 5 pounds. And then that's where it stays.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of using the concept of the SMART goal gives you those other pieces that you need. And
then that gives you a chance to prepare. So now here's your goal. Now, what are you going to do to achieve that in the prepare part?
Right. Often in the prioritizing piece, before we get to the preparation, it really is, okay, so I want to lose 5 pounds by August 9th. That, in that priority. So maybe you actually want to lose 10 pounds, or kind of sitting in that, 10 pound, 5 pound, whatever it might be. So say I'm going to change my goal to, I want to lose 10 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
That prioritizes, before you get to 10 pounds, you've got to get to that first 5, right?
Right.
So I think that's a little bit where we need to prioritize. We can't have this grandiose, I need to lose 100 pounds by next month.
Mm-hmm. Break it into smaller sections that are mentally and physically attainable.
Right. So there's a little bit more of that prioritizing piece. But yes, now how do you prepare for that?
Mm-hmm.
You have to make sure that, one, I always say one of the most important things is to get your family and friends on board. If you live with other people, you're trying to lose weight, and you're going to say, I'm going to go vegan for a month. That's a little extreme, but let's just say that. And you do all the cooking. You might want to tell your spouse or partner that you're planning on doing this, because it's going to affect them. Mm-hmm. So part of that preparation really is about preparing other people too. Mm-hmm. And it works with your work career goals too. If you have a goal that you want to reach in your job with your career, and you work with other people, it's really important for them to know, because if you're busy doing something and you're not as available to people, they might get frustrated because you're not available to them the way you used to be. So again, preparation is really important to think of outside of you. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, the most important thing is to then actually prepare yourself personally. Get the food that you want, get the recipes, plan meal planning times. So all of that comes into the preparation. And again, like I said, it works with your personal and professional and physical goals too.
One of the challenges of preparation, though, is that it can be a procrastinator, because, well, I don't have everything in place, so this isn't going to work. So now we're in overcoming that perfection of preparation.
I was going to say, now we come into a fourth P, perfectionism.
Yeah. We're on the same page, right? Exactly. Well, I can't do this because I don't have it all. I don't have all the recipes. I don't have all the food. And that just creates a downward spiral.
It can. And so what I always tell my clients, especially when it comes to diet and exercise, is get one day right, get one meal right. Mm-hmm. Let's start small. Mm-hmm. Because what will happen, especially with that perfectionism, if you don't have everything in place, everything's not perfect, then you go, oh, well, I screwed up, so I'm not going to reach this goal. Mm-hmm. You've got lots of time to reach a goal. Between now and August 9th, if I screw up today with my goal of losing 5 pounds, I can definitely pick up tomorrow where I left off.
It's about giving yourself grace.
Part also.
Yeah, giving yourself grace.
Mm-hmm.
But not using it as a crutch to not try again.
Absolutely. Anytime we don't succeed in something, we automatically think that we're not good enough. we can't do this. And it really is a mindset. It's that internal judge that we have. You know, I always think it's the little angel on the one side and the little devil on the other. The little devil is a lot louder than the little angel. And so let's another time we'll talk about the little angel and the devil in more detail, and how that can help us obviously with success with our health and our wellness, and our exercise goals and food goals.
I look forward to that. Thank you, Denise.
You're welcome.
As always, it's informative, but also achievable.
Thank you.
Hello again, and welcome to Diane McClay, our main guest for today. And I'm really excited about this. If you ever talk to somebody you have never met before, and you have a 2-hour conversation that was intended for 15 minutes, you know it is good. So that's what happened to us. And so, Diane, I want to give you a chance to give your bio, and then we'll dive in.
Yeah, thanks for having me on the show. For everybody who's listening, my name is Diane McClay, and I'm coming to you from Denver, Colorado. And I'm kind of in the middle of changing how I tell people what I do, because when you make a massive life change, like leaving a job, or maybe leaving a relationship, or moving to a completely different state, there's kind of this inherent rebuilding of who you are. You're reconnecting and reattaching to things maybe you've lost, and you're discovering new things about yourself. So with that very vague introduction, in general terms, I'm kind of an empowering positivity coach, and I have this unique ability to help people see things from a completely different perspective. I was listening to your conversation with Denise about planning and prioritizing, and I'm like, wow, I really need to get better at that. My personality is that I'm very spontaneous. I don't plan a lot. I take advantage of whatever comes at me at the time. And so how do I tell people what I do? I just had a dentist appointment yesterday, and what I do is I ask questions. I ask people to think about shifting their perspective just 1 degree, just a little bit, and consider the 2 important questions: what if and why not? And so in essence, if you're stuck and you don't know, you know that you can't stay where you are, but you don't quite know where you want to be, because maybe you don't have a plan or a priority, or the preparedness like you guys talked about, you want to call me. I'm the person who can just I can listen, and I take a lot of information, and I can sort of filter it all the way down, and then I can redirect and ask some questions that help shift your perspective. And the ultimate goal is to put the power of choice back into my clients' hands, to personalize choice and to empower their personal life journey. I think society has taught us that we don't have choice. Our culture, our churches, our parents, our teachers, our bosses, I think as women especially, sometimes we yield choice without even realizing that we're doing it. And part of what I want to do, part of my mission in the world, is to reconnect people to the power of perspective, the power of choice, the power of awareness, and then basically blend all of those things together so that they can make decisions in a courageous and confident way to get where they want to go.
That's fantastic. There's so much to dive into. So let's start here. We identify ourselves when you introduce yourself to somebody, or the next question that they say is, so what do you do? So our identity is so encapsulated with our profession.
Exactly.
And I don't know that that's a good thing, because why would my opinion of you change by knowing what your profession is, right? So versus who you really are. But for those people that are in transition, there's an identity shift that happens, but also working through that identity shift is really challenging.
Yeah, so can I just respond to that real quick? And then I kind of want to bring Denise in on this, because she's sort of seen me along my journey. My quick history is that at first grade, I knew I wanted to be a park ranger. I managed to go to college and get a degree in recreation management. I had 17 beautiful years, mostly beautiful, in a state government in Oregon. I had 5 years with the federal government. So I was in a system, right?
Mm.
And I knew that I was going to retire within that system. That was my belief. Well, life happens and things happen and people make mistakes. And then even when you make mistakes, I made some as a manager, there's a story that gets told about who that person is, what their values are, what they can do or not do, what their capacity is. And sometimes that story ends up taking a life of its own.
Mm.
And then we as individuals assume or adopt that story because it's been told about us.
Mhm.
So without getting into the details, that kind of happened to me, like a story and a situation evolved in my dream job. And it pushed me up against a wall to a point where I literally had to either accept what the agency decided for me on my behalf, or I had to step up and own what I thought was best for me. And ultimately, that was walking away from my dream job. It was resigning, not accepting the offer that they gave me. That was 6 hours away from my family. And then starting fresh and refiguring out who I was and what my worth was and what I was contributing to the world. Literally in that moment, I kid you not, in the middle of my heart, in the middle of my chest, in my body, it was like a jolt of electricity or a light bulb went off and the word choice just blared at me, right? And I'm going to just grab this real quick. Right. It's so important to me that, and this is a little bit big, sorry, Fred, but something that I've now wood burned onto a piece of bark.
Wow.
And it's not hanging on my wall yet because I need to find the right place, but it became my mantra. So I want to go back to your question. I want to say that when we introduce ourselves, we are taught to say, what do you do?
Mm-hmm.
I would encourage people right off the bat to make a different choice and come up with a different narrative. And my question is, what's something you believe in? Okay, now I don't mean politically, right? Because that's just too dangerous on a first date type conversation.
It's too dangerous on a 5-year relationship or forever. Right. Never.
This next statement, I hope that your listeners will understand who I am as a person. Mm-hmm. I believe in the power of nature. I believe in the power of choice. I believe in generating solutions, not solving problems. Right? So now you have, when I'm introducing myself, I can say I'm an empowerment coach, but there's 1,000 other people that are empowerment coaches. What makes me different is, first of all, I believe in you. I don't know you. I don't know your situation. But one of the things that's unique about me is I carry like this backpack full of belief, and it's overflowing. Random stranger on the street, someone says, I can't do that. I say, you know what? I believe you can. I literally, as a park ranger, we're taught to put things in your pack that help you survive when you're out in the woods or when you're on a trail. You're a backpacker too, Denise, right? So you think of all these things we stuff in our backpack and we carry with us, and they're typically physical things: first aid kit, flashlight, fire starter, blah, 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 axe.
And pack your fears too.
So as a coach, I use that metaphor and I believe in story so that we can get to the heart of whatever it is that people are trying to figure out or move themselves forward. So inherently, I believe in you. Mm-hmm. So I think that changes the dynamic of the conversation, and we no longer put people in a question of what do you do, i.e., what's your worth, what's your value that you're contributing to the world. We're really asking, who are you as a person?
That's profound. And,
Thank you.
And I'm having a problem saying any more about that because there's nothing else to say. It's incredible. And you put it in very clear, concise terms. And it's a message that everybody needs to hear, because we are so identified by our action. And it's interesting when you even for people that aren't in transition. So when you're talking to somebody that maybe they're a homemaker, right? And so what do you do? And they say, well, I stay home and I take care of my kids, in that kind of a tone. And it's like they're not being their job is the most important job in the whole wide world. But deep down inside, do they value that, or do they really feel that that job is the most important job? Because if there's not somebody within the family unit taking care of our kids on a large proportion of the day, it changes values, right? So it's really an interesting statement. And so as people are identifying themselves or redefining their definition of themselves, or how they're verbally going to say that, the transition between, as they're working through a transition between a career transition, let's say, staying true to themselves, but also staying confident and not being discouraged, because whether you're going from one employee job and trying to find another job as an employee, which can be incredibly difficult if you can get an interview or interview over interview, or you're making the brave change like you did from going from a system to being self-employed. Both of those ventures are terrifying.
They are, and I want to bring Denise in real quick if I can, because she just typed something into the chat, which I kind of forgot that I wrote. Denise, will you share that?
Absolutely. So Diane is one of the authors of my latest book, Healthy Living, Happy Life, Master Your Mindset and Get Bleep Done. And the quote that she included in her chapter reads as this: the scariest part is right before you do the thing. Once you walk over the threshold, that's where your dreams unfold.
Yeah. So yeah, thanks for bringing that in, Denise. And I think that's true. Like, the scariest thing before you make any kind of change is all of the stuff that comes up before you make the decision. And I have a belief, if you were to ask me, what's the one thing that I want to change in the world, or what's the one message that I want the world to have, it would be this: too often we are afraid of making the wrong decision, and we are paralyzed by trying to make the right decision. So what if, one of my favorite questions, what if we just agreed that there wasn't going to be a good or a bad, a right or a wrong in front of the decision? What if we just said we are making a decision? I would love, I'm not going to have a gravestone, but when there's a party for me and people remember what mark I left on this world, I would like the conversation to be about, can you believe we're no longer thinking about right or wrong decisions? Can you believe that I've, like, for 50 years, I've just been making decisions and I feel happy? That would be my goal.
Right. Well, defining right or wrong. So many years ago, when I first started as a financial advisor, I actually started in this career part-time. I wasn't sure. I was living in an area that I didn't know anybody. I wasn't sure if this was the gig that was right for me. And so I had another job and I was working part-time and trying to make that full-time jump. And it's just really hard to go from something that's secure to being 100% responsible for financially for your family as well as your career, right? And so the secure piece had some changes coming up that I truly did not feel, just like you, I truly did not feel that fit me. And I could not agree to the changes. So if I didn't agree to the changes, my only choice was to not be there. And it was a Wednesday and I had until noon on Wednesday to decide. And at 11:45, I called Human Resources and I said, I absolutely cannot sign this paper. Come walk me out the door. And so when I walked out the door, the first thing that I did was I went to the beach and I walked in the sand, because what I did was I just burned my boat. And I was excited and it felt like the right thing. And I was absolutely terrified, but I wouldn't be where I was today if I didn't make a decision right or wrong, I had no idea whether it was the right thing to do.
But you did.
But I did. But I did. But inside I did. I knew.
The mind, and you guys were talking about the planning and the prioritizing and preparing, and there is a ton of value in all of that, right? But no amount of, I mean, Denise, correct me if I'm wrong, but no amount of planning, no amount of prioritizing, and no amount of preparation can really get your mind wrapped around a massive life change, like a divorce or a death or leaving a job, right? You can think about it a lot. Correct me if I'm wrong, but, and jump in here, because I love having like a conversation about this.
You're 100% right. There are definitely situations where all of the planning and preparation and kind of hard work doesn't make sense. You know, certain life situations, there's just so overwhelming and so much going on. And I think that's where mindset, you know, that's where we need to start working on a different mindset. You know, that judgment piece comes in no matter what the situation. And so I would agree. Yes, planning and preparing and all of that is awesome. When you're in a situation where that just isn't possible, that's when we need to step back and, you know, kind of look internally, like what is the mindset that you have about that situation? How do you change it?
Yeah,
And
when you're in crisis,
with
prioritizing and planning kind of goes out the window. But I want to tie it back into the, you know, I was taking some notes when you two were talking at the start of the show. And one of the first things you said is, what do you want? What is the big picture? That is planning. In like, if you back out of the finiteness of it, what Jeanne wanted was a peaceful work environment. I assume she wanted to be valued and recognized. I assume she wanted to be compensated well for her talents. I assume by the limited information I have in her story, if she's telling me that she made a choice to leave a situation, there was clearly something there she didn't want. Which now she may not have full intellectual cognitive knowledge of what she does want. But in one of my books, I wrote, choice happens when you know for sure you cannot stay where you are. You're not sure where you're going to go, but you know for a fact you can't stay where you are. That's where choice and courage come in.
But there's also a belief piece too, going back to what you were saying in your backpack. I must have been wearing some kind of a belief backpack at that time, because even though it was frightening, I knew that it was the right choice, even though it was difficult. So and I didn't know what would happen after.
How did you know? Let's tell our listeners, because like we're coaches, right? We coach each other. We get coaches. We build support networks around us fairly easily. But for the average listener who may not have access to that just yet, but we're going to tell people how they can get in touch with all three of us. So if someone's like, man, I don't know where I'm going, but I know that I can't stay, how would you define that you knew it was right? And same question to you too, Denise. How did you know that it was right? And how did that give you the courage to step into it?
That's a great question, because when this happened, there were no coaches, right? This was long enough ago where you didn't reach out and ask for help. You didn't make tough choices. And there's a gut feeling or an inner essence that happens, and that it's, you can't talk it down. You just know. And it's really, for me, it's very hard to explain, because I've talked to my business coach about this, and there's some things that have been that go on in my business, and I just know that it's okay. And I just know that these things will be achieved. And it's not because of spreadsheet. I have a goal spreadsheet, and I have a business tracker, and I have all those things. But for me, there's this internal gauge and guide that says, don't be afraid. Don't be a wimp. Don't be a wuss. Do the work. And but what's also very difficult too is communicating that to your significant other, that I did after the fact, not before the fact. Hey, guess what I just did? It'll be fine. You watch. But it's very difficult to convey those inner feelings that you can't put words around yourself and actually tell your significant other that financially, I just made a big change and I didn't involve you, and it's going to be okay. So there has to be some serious trust in the relationship to make that work.
Denise, how did you know? How did you, when you made a significant change in your life and you didn't really have the words to express it, how did you know that it was going to be okay, or that you were going to bounce back, or that you weren't going to die?
Definitely gut feeling. The situation for me was I had left my job, my apartment, everything that I loved, to move back to New York and be with someone who I thought I was to be with for the rest of my life. And as time went on, I just knew, like, that gut, that things just weren't right. And when I made the decision to end that relationship, it was a gut feeling, but it was more me saying to myself, I want more, I want better, I deserve more, I deserve better.
Deserve.
Yeah, which comes back to your preliminary statement of what do you want? Why do you want it? And you know, you both said look for easy to understand bits and pieces, right? So maybe our listeners are like, did they really say that? Like, if you take a really big situation or even a little tiny situation and you go to the simplest thing and you say, what is the easiest to understand here? And then you say, how do I feel about that? Do I like it? Yes or no? If I don't like it, how would I rather feel? Right? And then you can, once you know that. So I love how you just said powerfully, Jeanne, I just know. I just know. My partner, there are people she meets and she's like, oh, I don't like them. And I'm like, why not? She's like, I don't know. I just know.
I just know.
And usually about 3 or 4 months later, I find out that I'm the one who trusted that person a whole lot. And then I learn more information about them. It was like, oh, there it is. Right. But I want to tie this in real quick, because it's like, if we look for easy to understand bits and pieces, and if we allow our goals to ebb and flow, as you guys mentioned in the beginning, and we stay connected to the why, and the why may change, right? But, and if we can stay to what does success mean to us, then we can use choice and we can use courage to move ourselves forward, and we can find what resonates. You know, I tell people, if you're not sure about anything, go for a walk, clear your head, go out in nature. That's one of my big things. And nature doesn't have to be like the wilderness. It could just be the sidewalk in the city. But I ask people this question: what do you observe on your walk? So, oh, I observed a dandelion growing up in a sidewalk crack. Why is that important to you? Right? Nature is going to tell us. Nature, I think, is going to fill in some of those things that we think we don't know, but it gives us words or a story to talk about what we believe and how we can apply that to our life to be successful and to reconnect to our why and reconnect to our purpose.
Can we talk about the outside piece to just a little bit more? Because I think it's really important, not just because it's a theme of the podcast, but it's kind of important.
Yeah. Well, I mean, outside in, inside out.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So that removing yourself from the current situation you're in, physically and mentally, and putting yourself into another situation. And like you said, it could be a sidewalk in the city, or it could be the deep woods, or it could be your backyard. Why does that change our thinking? And why does that give us the ability to take a breath and have a better perspective on or a broader perspective on what's going on?
I think it's just automatic, to be honest with you. If you make a choice to remove yourself from a situation, whether it's a stressful situation or just the fluorescent lights of your office, you're empowering yourself with choice. You're seeking something different, right? It's why we recreate on the weekends. It's why we travel. It's why we go to a new restaurant. It's why we try to meet new friends, or we try a new activity. I think as human beings, we are designed to grow and to learn.
Mhm.
And I think inherently we know that we can become stagnant in our own routine.
Mhm.
And stagnation doesn't invite creativity, right? So let me put it into the positive sense. When you go to a new place, there is stimulus that your brain takes in, both consciously and subconsciously. We attach ourselves to the things that make ourselves feel good
Mhm.
and empowered and strong. And we also generate awareness for things that make us feel uncomfortable.
Mm.
And I think we crave that deep down inside. I think as human beings, I think we crave kind of that back and forth. You use the words ebb and flow.
Mhm.
But to me, when I go into nature, everything becomes simple. It's way more simple. Like the tree is not worried about how much oxygen or rain it's going to get. Right. I mean, it just is. That flower, it's either going to bloom and generate more flowers or it's
Or
not.
it's not.
Right. So I think there is a sense of simpleness that we as humans crave, but we forget to embrace because we have to have stuff and things and schedules, and we have to, Denise, you're shaking your head, like we got to fit all of this stuff into our day and our lifetime.
Mhm.
And I think for me, just going outside and taking my shoes off and grounding to the land is, I think it's humbling. I think it's connective for me. And I think that there is always a lesson for me, that like I am always looking and observing, and I ask myself, what do I see? And then what is the lesson for me to receive?
Mhm. And so in your time as a park ranger, did you see people for any extended time or run into them from maybe when they first got there till after they spent some time outside? And did you see, and if you did, a lawyer never asks a question they don't know the answer to. So I'm asking you, right? So I asked you this question and you could go, no, I never saw that. And then we'll go on to something else. But did you ever see a difference in how people appeared after they had time to let nature absorb into themselves?
Absolutely, 100%. And as a ranger, we would always joke, especially on my big holiday weekends, we would always say everybody who comes into the park, the minute they are driving in, they are under the influence. And we're like, not necessarily of drugs or alcohol, but like they drove too slow to get here. The line is too long. The kid barfed in the car. They brought the right beer, not enough beer, right? Did they pack the hot dogs? Did they pack the s'mores? Did somebody remember the blanket? Like they are bringing all of the crap that they have dealt with all week, all month, all summer, their whole entire life. They pack all of that emotional crap into the car or the RV or the trailer or the canoe, and they bring it with them. And their expectations, it's interesting, you and I are word nerds, and so is Denise, but recreate, RE, meaning to do again,
Mhm.
and create, to be born again, to renew, to refresh. People bring all of that emotional and physical baggage to a different place, and then they expect that that's going to dissipate somewhat by the time they have to return home.
Mm.
What I mean, and they do. The ornery person who starts out at 4 o'clock on Friday afternoon is not that same ornery person on Monday morning at 8 a.m. when they're breaking the tent down, unless the family doesn't communicate well about whose job is what's happening in the breakdown process. Right. But what starts to happen on Monday morning is all of the stresses of, we have to hurry up and get home. We have to hurry up and unpack. I have to work tomorrow. I have these things to do. I got to do laundry. I got to go grocery shopping. Like there's a very narrow window where people let go of all of that external expectation, but it starts to creep back in again when they start packing up to go home.
And I'm sure Sunday night, there's the dread of the creep.
There could be.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But I think the thing is for me, like, I'm right next to me. Like I have rocks, I pick up things in nature.
Me too.
This fell on a trail.
And we all have rocks on our desks.
Right.
That is so fun.
I have a pine cone with feathers in it. for me, when I go to nature and I just pick something up, and then here's the park ranger me, right? Don't pick up animals.
Leave
don't
no
pick up
trace. Yeah.
things that you don't know what
And then
they
there's
are,
the
'cause
whole leave no trace piece, but
it could be
we're not gonna get
poisonous,
into
or they
it.
could bite you. But inanimate objects, here's a piece of cherry bark, right? That has dried out, and I'm like, oh, that'd be cool to make paper out of it. I touch things because it makes me feel connected to nature, and then I get curious and I ask questions, and I ask, what's the lesson?
And
I could keep talking, but you told me we had to stick within 50
I know, right?
minutes, so.
That's really funny because I'm in the, do I ask another question? Because
where are we at
this
with
is so
time? Let's just
fantastic.
double
We're
check that.
close. Yeah, we've got to probably 5 minutes left, and then we can, what I'd like to do though, is I'd like to do this again, and do this again and have part 2, because there's so much that we can talk about. And then what I'd like part 2 to be is, instead of just hearing Denise in the background, I'd like part 2 for be the 3 of us to have a conversation, an interactive conversation, because there's so much that we can put into Denise's her monthly concepts, and everything that you, Diane, have to your listening skills and your ability to filter and bring clarity to a situation that could be either overwhelming, or, like for me, when we were talking, I didn't know I didn't have clarity on something, and through our conversation, unexpectedly, the light bulb went on. I'm like, oh, that's freaking obvious. Why the hell did I not even know? I didn't even know that I needed to know that. Right. So, and it brought clarity and direction and excitement to something that I didn't know didn't have any of that. Oof.
Well, and I didn't know that when I engaged you in that conversation, that wasn't the outcome. I wasn't like, oh, she needs clarity, I got to help her find it.
Yeah.
It was more like, and I guess this is what I get excited about, is I have this really unique ability to see something from a completely different perspective. And I really appreciate that you called that out and recognized that I bring clarity to, I bring, I kind of settle the chaos in our mind. And, this is why I love working with Denise and Living Healthy List. It's why I got to give a shout out to Susan Taylor King, who is my coach and helped me get some clarity on what I was doing. She's the one who captured the backpack metaphor for me. But, really, it's about how do we all support each other? And, here's a perfect tie-in, right? Denise talks about planning, prioritizing, preparation. What if we could give people a summertime list of how they could use the 3 Ps to maximize their trip to their recreation spot, so that they could get clarity, lose the chaos, and have a good time? Like, what if we overlaid the 3 Ps with success of life with how do we use the 3 Ps to connect to nature in a way that we can get that more meaningful connection quicker, faster, deeper, and then actually not fall back into the chaos of real life when we come back from our vacation? That would be a cool conversation.
Part 2 has just been defined. So everybody that's listening to this right now, when we get back together, the 3 of us are going to talk about exactly what Diane has outlined for us. I think it'll be a fascinating conversation. So Diane, thank you. As always, it's just a blast to talk with both of you. And so I appreciate your time today, and part 2 is coming up.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to be here. I appreciate it. And Denise, as always, even if we don't talk a lot, just being around your energy and your space and your belief is always empowering to me. Jeanne, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for listening today. Today's show was sponsored by Seaside Solutions, my financial services company. As a business owner, it's easy to be pulled in many different directions, and often taking care of yourself plummets to the bottom of the list. For me, I find myself outside to reground. My time outdoors helps me manage my day more effectively and be more present for my clients. Through this, Discover Rising Tides was born. At Seaside Solutions, we truly believe that education is the foundation of financial wellness. Our primary focus is to provide guidance that is designed to help you achieve your long-term financial goals and visions. Working with a plan allows space for doing more things that you love, like being outside to make the inside better. If I can help you create or realign your plan, or if you would like to be added to my weekly newsletter, please let me know. This week's topic was 5 ways to set more achievable goals. Your referral means the big, beautiful world to me. And if I can help, please let me know. And thank you so much for listening, and see you next time.